Well, there's nothing to think about, Harris. There's just nothing there. She's a laughing cow. I don't know why she's always laughing. The world's on fire. Why are you always laughing? She's just completely detached from reality. The um, the Democratic Party, it engaged in this public relations juggernaut, this orchestration. It was very much, and I don't mean this facetiously, it was very much like the passing of the baton from Kim Il Sung to his son. This total non-entity, Kim Il Sung's son, he's suddenly the great leader, and we should all be joyful at the great leader. Um, Kamala Harris is not even a zero; she's a -1, and it wasn't so much by the Democratic Party. It wasn't so much jubilation because they knew that. If you remember, for the past 4 years, everybody was ridiculing Kamala Harris. They said she didn't get along with her staff. She wasn't, it was, and then all of a sudden they pulled this Kim Il Sung on us, and we're supposed to all be jubilant at the great leader. It wasn't so much jubilation at Harris; it was jubilation at no longer having the Biden albatross. At least Harris was, lucid. No content, but it was lucid and contentless as against not lucid and contentless. Um, and if you look at the campaign is just a negative campaign. Nobody much cares her platform. She has no platform. I'm going to give money to people, small home, middle class homeowners. Nobody's paying attention. The whole campaign is negative. That a vote for Harris is a vote for democracy. A vote for Trump is a vote for authoritarianism. Nobody's discussing what Trump's policies are. There's none. There's no discussion whatsoever. The question is, where will the American people come down? I remain a complete outlier. I think Trump's going to win. I said that uh, after the convention where it seemed like she was taking off because she starts out basically losing two significant constituencies. Number one, the white working class. She's not going to get the white working class. That to me is pretty obvious just from talking to people in the street. Uh, and number two, she's not going to get the under 30 vote. Now, they're not going to vote for Trump. No possibility. They'll sit it out. They will sit it out. So you lose those two constituencies, I think that's a real problem. Of course, she'll lose also the Arab Muslim constituency. That's not a main one. It's just, and Kamala Harris will get the black woman vote, which they wish anyone would have gotten because that was a signature. Uh, that was a signature of the Biden administration, if you recall. This is very frustrating. Um, if you recall, the Biden administration, it promised to appoint the first black woman Supreme Court justice, which it did with Ketanji Brown Jackson. He then had a black woman lesbian press secretary. He then there was a third appointment with Ketanji Brown Jackson, his press secretary. And Kamala Harris. So he wrapped up the black woman vote, and she'll get that. Hispanic vote seems in nobody's pocket right now. So I'm skeptical because I have conversations with ordinary people. I'm not relying on the pollsters, and even though Alan Lichtman seems to have this perfect record of predicting presidents, and he now says that Harris will win, I still don't see it. I think that there's too much dissatisfaction out there with the economic situation to for Harris to succeed. And she's not really running on an economic platform. They're just running. What was the editorial yesterday in the Times? Do you have the Times in front of you?
Yes,
I know you guys multitask. I don't do that.
right.
What was the headline yesterday? The editorial board's endorsement for Kamala Harris.
Let me check.
Just the New York Times editorial support Kamala Harris.
Here you go. The only patriotic choice for president.
Yeah, it's just about supporting democracy. It's patriotic. Not that she offers anything.
Mhm.
Not that anyone would believe she offers anything. That's just, she's not, there's no, Biden had a track record, whether you liked it or not, he had a track record. She has no track record. It's an interesting thing, Professor Chomsky, he said the Republican Party is the most dangerous institution in human history. And there's obviously truth to that. I am a great believer in the credo, don't quarrel with facts. And you can make an argument for that. But the fact that I don't want to say but, I wouldn't dare say anything about Professor Chomsky, but I'll just say, in addition, it has to be borne in mind that the Republican Party at least had a primary. A primary is kind of the bedrock of bourgeois democracy, the primary. We all remember the candidates. There was sitting on stage Vivek Ramaswamy, there was Nikki Haley, there was Chris Christie, there was Ron DeSantis. It was actually an impressive lineup. Some of them are quite smart. Some of them are quite smart. The Democratic Party suspended the primary. There was no primary in the Democratic Party. The bedrock, that's the bedrock of a bourgeois democracy. They just, Biden declared his successor, and the powers that be, which were basically Pelosi, Schumer, Pelosi, and Obama. And then the powers that be, at the beginning, they were not pleased with that. As you remember, Schumer said he went on board for a primary at the convention, that there would be a sorting out between candidates. Obama didn't endorse Harris until he was the last. And Pelosi was not for it. But it turned out to just be an appointment. There was no primary, there was nothing. I mean, Kamala Harris didn't get a single vote, a single delegate after she ran for president in 2020, not one. She came in fourth, I think, in her own state of California in the primary. So at the minimum, the basic standards of democracy, I would have to conclude the Republican Party is a more Democratic Party than the Democratic Party.
Do you think
The Democratic Party was just a coronation.
I've often wondered about your admiration for Professor Chomsky and what you would have thought about his unwavering stance that at the end the Republican Party is worse than the Democratic Party. I mean, he always warned us to not think of politics in terms of presidential elections, but at that last instance he maintained until 2020. I wonder what you think he might have thought this time if he was active enough to share his thoughts.
There's no question what he would think. Professor Chomsky was, if nothing else, he was consistent. Um, there were very few. I'm trying to think in all the time that I knew him, were there any occasions where I was genuinely surprised by a stance that he took? There are some, let's see, I'll give you a few examples. Now, I've never revealed this, and I don't think I'm doing any I have to be careful because I have to respect him. Uh, and I have to be careful because people say things privately, often off the cuff, and then they think them through much more carefully before they say it publicly. I say very wild things privately. So, but there were occasions where, let's just say, I was surprised by his opinions, and I'm not going to quote any of them.
Maybe you should give us some some headline moments so that we can grow from 40,000 to 400,000 or maybe 4 million.
No, no, because he's
I was
not
just
here.
joking.
He's not in a position to elaborate on his opinions, and they were often private conversation, which, as I say, it's not as developed. Uh, so no, it's clear where he would have stood. Where I disagreed with him was he always said, "You're just going into the voting booth for 1 minute. Just vote for the person who's going to have do less harm, and then go on with the business of organizing to try to make the world a better place." He didn't consider it a weighty or a weighty or um, cosmic significance. You just go in. We know Harris is going to do less harm than Trump, and then let's move on. Okay. Um, I felt that that approach was not fully cognizant or didn't take fully into account all sorts of other, what you might call secondary or derivative factors. So let's, instead of talking in highfalutin language, let's be concrete. So in 2016, of course, Professor Chomsky says, vote for Biden, not Trump. No, vote for Hillary, not Trump. Vote for Hillary, not
16.
Trump. 2016, yeah. Vote for Hillary, not Trump. Well, Trump wins. Okay. Now, what happens? If Hillary had won, if Hillary had won, there's no question that the Democratic Party would have supported her in 2020. There's also no question that Bernie Sanders would not have defied the Democratic Party. And so the fact of the matter is, and I think it is a fact, I don't think it's open to dispute, had Hillary won, there would not have been the most significant mass movement in modern American history, the Bernie Sanders candidacy. It would not have happened. Now, you could say that couldn't be predicted and so on and so forth. But we have to say in retrospect, it was not so simple to just vote for Hillary because it would have precluded, and I would put that word in emphasis. I'm not talking about a possibility. It would have precluded the Bernie Sanders candidacy. Secondly, the tendency is when Democrats come into power, they neutralize opposition, give them a chance, they have no choice, the whole blah, blah, blah. Whereas when a Trump gets into power, nobody defers to this give him a chance. And uh, he's doing the best that he could. We don't say that when a Trump is in power. Uh, so the prospects and possibilities for real opposition, they significantly increase when there is a Trump type figure in power.
Can I interrupt you
I,
there?
I want to just say one last
Okay.
thing, then you'll be free to interrupt me, though I'm going to have to leave too. The last thing is, of course, analogies are always, as I said earlier, history doesn't repeat itself. So one has to be careful about analogies. But Trump is not a fascist-like figure for a very simple reason. The ruling elite doesn't need fascism. Fascism emerged at a point in history where there were two formidable forces. There were the forces of capitalism and the forces of socialism, the working class movement. It seemed to have real prospects between the Communist and Socialist Party had they found a common ground in Germany. And there was a formidable Italian Communist Party and Socialist Party, of which Mussolini was once part. Um, if the system, if it was really in jeopardy, then the institutions of quote unquote bourgeois democracy would defer to Trump were he to try to carry out an authoritarian coup. If they had to choose between a Trump authoritarian coup and a anti-capitalist, we won't call it leftist or socialist, and an anti-capitalist movement, yes, I believe there would be a danger. But what do we have now? There is no left. There's no threat to bourgeois democracy. There's no threat to capitalism. So were Trump to try to carry out a coup, let's ask ourselves a simple question. Justice Roberts, Justice Gorsuch, Justice Alito, would they go along with it? I don't think there's any possibility the Supreme Court would go along with it. They like the system. The system is pro-business. Roberts is pro-business. Gorsuch is pro-business. They like the system. The system is just fine. Why would they want to dismantle all the institutions of bourgeois democracy, all of its protocols and its uh, uh, checks and balances, and give the power over to Trump? I don't think there's any possibility. Would the military go along with it? No. A lot of them are very patriotic to our institutions. As you remember, when Trump tried in 2020, even Pence wouldn't go along with it. Even his vice president wouldn't go along with it. So I think this talk about him presenting a threat to democracy, I don't see it. I don't. I think the institutions of bourgeois democracy are quite robust. They have a long history, and it's not as if the people who staff those institutions are about to jettison them for Donald Trump. This is really ridiculous. It's getting on my nerves.
Is that an alarm or something?
No, it's people calling, but
Oh.
so I should have disconnected the phone. Uh, so I don't believe that the threats that are claimed are valid. I think that's scaremongering.
It was interesting to me that I think Professor Chomsky would agree with you on your analysis of whether Trump represents fascism. Even he used to say that he's not the classical fascist type, and he would also agree with you that there is no such danger to the business class at this moment. But I was thinking about once someone asked him about this Zizekian line, which you just said today, that um, if Hillary had come to power, we wouldn't have had the Sanders movement. And Zizek made this same argument that Donald Trump would come and shake the system, out of which we might have some radical movement. And this question was put forth to Professor Chomsky, and his response was that this is a very stupid idea because, I mean, he gave the reference of Hitler again, but I think he could come
I
back and
know
say, yeah.
that was the slogan of the Communist Party during what was called the Third Period.
Mm-hmm.
Said after fascism, socialism.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, after fascism, there was more fascism, and then there were about 60 million people who died in World War II. And even then, you didn't get socialism.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's the classic left argument. Not an argument, it's a slogan. Uh, the worse it gets, the better. No, I don't believe that. I don't think the worse it gets, it's better, but I do believe that there would have been there was more room to organize an opposition during the Trump period than there would have been under the Clinton period. I mean, remember, we wouldn't be electing Harris for 4 years, we'd be electing her for 8 years. There's no way
Right.
the Democrat is going to say, all right, let's have a primary in the next election cycle. It's not going to happen.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.